Hi, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of Seed Speaks. My name is Mark Zinkowitz. I'm an editor for Seed World Group, and I'll be acting as your host for today's episode. On today's episode, we're continuing our closer look at SeedWorld's top 10 most innovative products for 2022. Last week, my colleague Ashley Robinson spoke with three companies about their seed technology products. This week, we're talking about technologies that solve some really unique problems for growers. We have a seed treatment technology and a soybean seed technology. Joining me today are Rebecca Noble, product manager at BASF, to discuss Taraxa seed treatment. We'll also talk with Brian Stobaugh, director of licensing and genetics with the Missouri Soybean Association, which markets Soyleic soybeans. Now, please don't hesitate to ask any questions you may have for our guests in the chat box. Up first, we're talking about Teraxxa, as I said, with Rebecca Noble, product manager at BASF. Welcome, Rebecca.
Thank you so much. Pleasure to be here.
Thank you for your time. Now, when it comes to wireworm protection in cereals, it can be difficult to find a product that eliminates this concern. Enter Teraxxa, which is a seed treatment created by BASF for use on cereal crops. Teraxxa makes a big promise to eliminate wireworms and reduce wireworm populations by breaking up their reproductive cycle in wheat. Rebecca, can you explain to us in a nutshell how this technology works?
Absolutely. So thanks for that quick introduction on Taraxa seed treatment. You are correct that Taraxa seed treatment is the only insecticide on the market that eliminates wireworms, and it is one that BASF launched in 2021. Now, it's a new insecticide compound, broflanilide, and with that, a new class of chemistry. It's actually a metadiamide, part of the newer IRAC group 30. And how broflanilide works within the wireworm, within the pest, is it interferes with nerve signal communication. And this causes overexcitation, incapacitation, and leads to a fastidious and direct mortality. So wireworm elimination via contact. So that's the wireworm elimination part. Why we're saying it also reduces populations is kind of the indirect effect of eliminating wireworms. So the reproductive cycles of wireworms are anywhere from 2 to 9 years in the soil. And taking a step back from that, wireworms are the larvae stage of adult click beetles, okay? And they're reproducing in the soil for 2 to 9 years. So they're a problem that has a pretty long cycle in the soil, and everything is occurring kind of simultaneously and continuously year after year. So breaking that cycle by causing elimination rather than just kind of a temporary intoxication that temporarily stuns a wireworm is important in reducing populations in the soil, breaking that cycle, and that like near and long-term impact in the soil.
Now, Rebecca, why is this so exciting for growers? Why is this product so revolutionary, breaking up that reproductive cycle? Why does this matter so much to wheat growers?
Well, it's because the growers have been left without a solution to control wireworms since Lindane left the market in 2007. So wireworm populations have been uncontrolled for 15 years. And with that population cycle, right, that reproductive cycle, it means it's just becoming a waterfall moment. Populations are building, and then entire fields could potentially be wiped out. So wireworms have been steadily resurfacing as a pest that's just ever present and lurking in the soil without able to stop that reproductive cycle. And going back to wireworm feeding and kind of thinking about that maybe a little bit more in why it matters to cereal growers and really anyone that is growing a crop that rotates with cereals, right? And it's impacting that soil year after year. One of the things is wireworm feeding is not methodical, right? It can be unpredictable. It can be widespread across the field. It can be very isolated. Wireworms are coming up. They're kind of in this dormant stage, and they're coming up when that seed germinates. So the seed that germinates releases CO2. So wireworms are scurrying up to feed on that seed when that happens. And not all wireworms at any given moment are feeding. So just because you've got a certain number coming up to feed, there's lots in the soil still. And that's kind of creating not a methodical process. So it's unpredictable, it's widespread, or sometimes it's isolated. 50% yield loss on just 20 acres of a 300-acre field could cost a farmer thousands of dollars. So this is really filling a gap in yield potential for a cereal grower and the land that grower is farming beyond cereals, right? Whatever they're rotating with. So if you aren't treating for wireworm elimination, you have even moderate pressure, you could be losing up to 15 bushels an acre just from wireworm damage. So that loss in productivity is a loss of profitability for a grower, for the industry, and a loss of output. So it's really revolutionary and gives that grower an extra tool in managing their field, right? Their crop in the near term, but long term, their field and the soil that they're growing on.
Now, as you say, this product is really, really special in that previous products might temporarily intoxicate the wireworms, but that could allow for them to return in later seasons, whereas Taraxa causes mortality and actually breaks that reproductive cycle using this active ingredient. That's really, really cool. And I'm just curious, what's exciting for you when you think about the future and what's coming down the pipe and where this sort of technology can go from here? What really excites you when you think about potential future technologies like this?
Well, I think what's really great, first and foremost, is the innovation that this really launches in the cereal market, the cereal seed treatment market, right? There's been a lot of different compounds coming out from manufacturers like BASF and others in the US and across North America over the last years, but a lot of them haven't been geared towards cereals and probably haven't been geared towards a very specific problem. And I think what this has really brought back is a little momentum in the cereal space and innovation in the cereal space. We know a lot of other manufacturers have different compounds that they'll be bringing to the cereals market, focused on insecticides, maybe focused also on some diseases that are harder to eliminate. But I think that's what excites me the most is kind of this breadth of innovation, this refresh and this refocus on cereals that maybe we haven't seen for a while from all manufacturers. But beyond that, I think manufacturers like ourselves are also really focusing on what are the long-term impacts, right? So if you think about what I talked about with Teraxa, you can think about it in the crop, the spring wheat crop you're growing now, right? You want to eliminate that feeding. You want to get the best possible yield out of that, right? Stand-in yield. So, but then moving on to the crop you're rotating with, or whatever rotation you're in wheat with, you're taking care of that soil and eliminating pests that could affect other crops down the line. And I think a lot of manufacturers are thinking about that as well. And so to me, Taraxa just kicks off probably a long line of innovation from not only BASF for cereals, but also other manufacturers in the market. And it's really special to see.
It is definitely. And thank you so much for your time today, Rebecca. Looking forward to seeing what's coming in the future. And congratulations to BASF for Taraxa being named one of our most innovative products. Have a great day.
Thank you so much.
Now, next up, we're going to talk with Brian Stoba, Director of Licensing and Genetics with the Missouri Soybean Association, which markets Soyleic soybeans. Welcome, Brian.
Welcome. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, thank you for your time. Now, Soyleic soybeans are a non GM, high oleic trait patented for use domestically and now internationally. Can you explain in a nutshell what's so significant about Soyleic soybeans?
You bet. So as we look at how food is consumed and used across the globe, soy is a big piece of that puzzle. And Soy Lake is a non-GM, high oleic soybean oil traded package that was discovered here in Missouri, but was used in multiple maturity groups across the United States. And we were able to develop maturity groups from 1 down to 7 in this product. And that diversifying process resulted in putting a product that is heart healthy and able to be used in human consumption in a healthy manner, and also showing the added benefit that if it is crushed mechanically and leaving behind the residual oils in the meal, that we have an added benefit to our animals when we are feeding that meal that is left over after the crush. So not only are we seeing one component for the oil, we're seeing the other component for the meal, and we're growing, and we're excited about this and this new endeavor and the commercialization. And we thank our partners on this a lot, Mark. But the big piece is that when you ask about the international, it takes someone to really look at the future and take that gamble and place that product right there in their backyard. And with our latest licensee this last fall with Sipcam Italia, and which is a subsidiary company of Sipcam Oxon, there in the EU. They started work on this many years ago and putting this into the European trials. So they've been working with us for quite some time. So it's awesome to see this product come to commercialization, and it's even better to see the fact that they are going to be able to use the Soy Lake soybeans in their identity preservation systems there on their local farms and be able to crush and extract the oil and use the meal there locally.
Now, I want to hone in on this idea of heart healthy. That's a big deal for a lot of consumers. Why is that significant to have a heart healthy soybean? Can you explain that for us?
Yes, sir. So we flashback a few decades ago to the mid 2000s when the Federal Drug Administration, the FDA for us in the United States, labeled that partially hydrogenated oils were not to be used because of trans fats. So at that point, soybean oil had a trans fat due to its partial hydrogenation process. And when that resulted in the loss of use and excessive use of soybean oil at that time, post 2008. At that moment, the soybean farmers across the country realized that something had to be done. And through work of private breeding companies and through work here in Missouri and with other universities and other private companies, the development of multiple components, transgenic, and then our Soyleic non-GMO high oleic was developed. And we were able to change that portion of what was labeled as a non-heart or non-healthy or a differing package of soy that had to be reduced and pulled out of the consumption portfolios and use, to us seeing it now going back in as the new version of a high stability, high functioning, frying, shelvable, and use on storage capacities. I mean, we've changed all of that by the fact of the way that we have brought in the natural traits and used those traits to create the Soy Lake product.
Now, I understand that Soyleic soybeans can support farmers' efforts to meet the 2025 goals of reducing land use impact by 10%, while also decreasing soil erosion by an additional 25%. So that makes it a sustainable product that really minimizes effects on the environment. Can you explain why that's really significant for you guys?
When we look at the farmers across the country, they're stewards of the land, and they are stewards of making sure everyone is fed, human and animal alike. And when a farmer sees that goal of making sure that they are doing everything that will increase the environmental capacity to where they are making a functional use of everything out there without harming anything, is always a goal of the farmer. The farmers have done this across the country, and you can see this in everyday studies. You can see this in new products that are being launched, new markets that are launched as we see this develop. So soybean is a sustainable crop, and it does lower all the impacts associated with how people look at crops being produced. We are able to put more seed in the field and grow more crops across the country and more efficiently and with less energy use than we have in the past. Automation, global positioning systems, everything has become strategic down to the inches of how far apart a seed is placed in the ground. Soy Lake plays in this space because Soyleic did not change anything of the seed or in the means of normal tending to the crop throughout the year. So we've been able to just basically insert a new trait into the soybean market and into new soybean varieties that the farmers can use, and they can see that potential grow right there in front of them, with them being able to see that potentially right there on the shelf near them soon, to where they can buy the oil or buy products that are used or animals that are fed, and being able to grow with the market right here, right now.
Now, when you think about the future, what excites you the most about what might be coming down the pipe in terms of high soyleic or high oleic soybeans, or potential market opportunities, anything like that? What excites you the most?
The exciting piece the most, we're starting to see more interest as the maturity groups have grown across this country. When we first started seeing the Soy Lake portfolio develop, it was very heavy in the Midwest. So what we would call maturity groups 3 and 4. But right now, we're seeing growth on the eastern side of this country, all the way from the Delmarva down to the Carolinas. And then we are seeing growth from the upper Midwest of Minnesota and the Dakotas, Nebraska. And we're even got interest and growth and seen in commercialization there in, for instance, Michigan. So all of the areas where high oleic have been established are growing further. But what we're most excited about is the expansion of the crush, the non-GMO crush capacity, which is what a lot of our shoppers are recommending. We still have our normal crush capacities and everything that is associated with the normal production of soybean oil and meal, but offering that variety that our customers request and the consumer request is what Soyleic gives. And that diversification and that opportunity that you give the buyer, and the farmers see that opportunity, and we are ecstatic about the fact that we are able to be that piece in this game of high oleic and grow those acres. And as we look into 23 and 24 and 25, all we're seeing is that we can barely keep up with the amount of supply and demand that we need to fulfill. So we're always looking for greater expansion. We're always working with our qualified state soybean boards or our soybean checkoff organizations, the United Soybean Board, to grow and develop that. And we thank everyone for their partnerships and their work and their advertising and their help in launching this product into this commercial space. The growth across maturity groups where we haven't had high oleic soybeans up to this point, and it's an overall great appeal to everyone around us. And when you look at the way that we have the ability to be non-GM, we get the opportunity to go to places where regulations can be hurdles, and the hurdles being time. Since Soyleic is non-GM, we do not have to worry about deregulation. So that ability to go produce the crop in these countries across the globe that are using soy and see the opportunities with high oleic, we are able to fill that space for them and give them that sustainable soybean crop that can be grown right there in their local country. All the while, they can still be importing and bringing soybean oil and meal that's Soyleic right from the United States.
Lots of opportunities for sure. Looking forward to seeing what's coming in the future. Thanks so much for your time today, Brian.
Thank you.
Now, we'll do a brief question and answer session. Rebecca, I'm going to ask you to come back on the line. I have a question regarding the potential use of Teraxxa in potatoes. I know this product is for cereal crops, but has there been any interest from farmers who also grow potatoes as this being a potential strategy for wireworm management in rotation years?
That's a really great question. I'm glad you brought that up. So I think just to reiterate, first and foremost, Taraxa seed treatment is currently only registered on small grain cereals. We have done rotational studies with wheat and potatoes. So wheat field treated with Taraxa, rotated in potatoes the next year. And we did see a reduction in holes in the tubers and damage frequency with that. So it would be part of a rotational strategy right now, since it is only registered on small grain cereals. But of course, BASF continues to look at the insecticide broflanilide and think about new uses. So very, very, very interesting, because I know potatoes, wireworms are a key pest in potatoes, and there are some in furrow solutions currently, but not at the seed treatment level.
Exactly. Yeah, looking forward to seeing what happens in the future. Thanks, Rebecca.
Yeah.
Brian, I have a question about what makes Soyleic soybeans different than some of the other high oleic soybeans on the market. What really sets these ones apart?
What sets these ones apart is the fact that it was a naturally discovered trait. And being the fact that it is differentiated in that piece is the uniqueness of Soyleic. That ability to be able to go and place this crop in regulated countries where a GMO or a gene edit may not be allowed to be planted in those specific countries, or the importation of a byproduct from a crop, makes Soyleic that optimal choice to put into the marketplace and to be grown in the United States for oil and for meal, and to be shipped there for use by those consumers. So the ability that we don't have to have regulations is what makes a big difference for Soyleic. The other piece is that that makes Soyleic unique is that it is a checkoff funded program, and we are ecstatic about the farmers and that endeavor they took, and that ability to see the future and see the future of soy, and the ability to get that marketplace back that we lost in the food sector. Those are two big pieces of this item for Soyleic's growth, is that we don't have to worry about the regulatory standards since we are non-GM, and the fact that we had awesome and amazing farmers in the past that saw the vision of what a high oleic non-GMO soybean could do, and give us that food right back on the table.
Yeah, it definitely helps to have a captive audience that's looking for a technology like this. And anytime you can cut down or avoid that regulatory red tape, that helps any technology or product too. So thanks so much, Brian. And congrats again on the Soyleic soybean being named one of our most innovative products.
Thank you so much.
Well, that's all the time we have today. I would like to thank Brian and Rebecca for speaking with me today, and congrats again to BASF and the Missouri Soybean Association for having their products named as two of SeedWorld's top 10 most innovative products. For those watching, thank you for tuning in. And if you missed part of today's live stream, don't worry, we'll have it available on demand via Facebook and YouTube. Next week, my colleague Alex Martin will be here to talk with the final two of our top 10 most innovative products and innovative companies, XtendFlex from Bayer and hybrid rice seed producer RiceTech. We hope you'll join us next week. Thanks again, and see you then.